It's official, I fell in love with a very specific PC case, and in today's video I'd like to introduce it to you. It's going by the name of AIR 100 ARGB, it's all white and is by the brand MONTECH. Now MONTECH may not necessarily be the brand most of you are familiar with, but in terms of quality we're in for quite a few surprises. The main focus here is minimalism, quality, good airflow, and very important to us consumers, good attractive pricing. At the time of making this video, we're looking at a price of about $76 for the white version. And yes, this means there's also a black one available, but I guess I wanted a bit of a change and decided to review the white one for you. Right off the bat, I'd like to make it clear that this is a case that only supports up to micro ATX motherboards. Now, as far as what comes included, nothing spectacular to see here. Move on. All we get is the screw accessories, cable ties, along with a magnetic dust filter. The aesthetics right off the bat really go along well with my personal taste. I love it. In fact, I like it this much, I'm starting to get urges to build some kind of system with it. Maybe something retro-ish, but something really amazing. We'll see. It becomes obvious attention has been paid to airflow, because in the front we first of all get lots of air vents on both sides respectively, and there's also straight up an awesome mesh panel in the front. By the way, that panel is out of metal and is being kept in place by magnets and can even conveniently be removed in no time. There's no dust filter behind it though, not even on the interior right after those front fans. Anyway, you're given access to the front in just a matter of seconds. What also stands out is that small handle on the tempered glass side panel. And that's in fact how you open that glass door. And yes, glass door, since the glass panel rests on hinges, but can even be lifted out of those when working on the build. The panel is kept in place by strong magnets on the handle side. A fantastic solution if you ask me. Noteworthy for sure is the fact MONTECH equips this case with 4 pre-installed 120mm ARGB fans, 3 in the front and a 4th one on the rear. I'm giving away bonus points for the fact that the fan frames as well as those 2 rubber grommets are also all in white. These rubber grommets don't necessarily sit tight though, therefore could fall out if you work on your cables too hard. It's just a minor thing I happened to notice. The remaining cutout holes do not come with any rubber grommets. As stated at the beginning, the AIR 100 ARGB only supports up to micro ATX motherboards. Needless to say, the even smaller mini ATX standard is fully supported as well. Really nice I find the fact that those 4 fans already come hooked up to a fan splitter cable, so we can control all 4 with just a single connector. Even though we're talking of the 3-pin connection, not the 4-pin PWM one, but it's really not that big of a deal. Integrated into the case also happens to be a small ARGB controller. Luckily, MONTECH hasn't decided on going for proprietary connectors, instead makes use of standard ones. Sadly, there are no additional ARGB headers left on the controller for us to use. Out of the box, the reset button is hooked up to take care of acting as the LED effect button, which you can easily change though. What I find really awesome on the other hand is that the integrated controller can also fully synchronize with one's motherboard. When briefly taking a glance at what the case in theory is capable of fitting, hats off. It sure does make a great impression, well given the size and price that is. For instance, in the front there's room for up to a 240 or 280mm radiator, whereas on the top you could fit one with up to 240mm. The pre-installed fans in terms of noise levels are actually fairly decent, at least for me personally. I really cannot complain, and the airflow seems pretty convincing too, but that doesn't really surprise, does it? As mentioned before already, there's no dust filter in the front. For some that's a clear no-go, for others on the other hand, they even prefer it that way. I personally sure would have liked having the option to attach one at least. And no, that included filter is not supposed to go in the front, it doesn't even really fit. In fact, that one's supposed to go to the top. There even are a few not fully punched out holes where the screws would go, and yes, that's intentional. When lying the case down, on the bottom, there's now that small, slightly pathetic dust filter for the power supply on display. It's removable, but is it a job truly well done? No, not really. Things get a little more exciting over in the storage department. In total, this AIR100 ARGB can take up to two 3.5-inch HDDs, one of which can be installed all toollessly. Noteworthy is the fact that by loosening 2 screws on the case bottom and 1 thumb screw directly on the hard drive cage, you can go ahead and reposition that one slightly sideways to basically make a little more room for a front-mounted radiator. You could, however, remove the HDD cage altogether if you so desire. Although you could either mount a 2.5-inch SSD or 3.5-inch HDD to the roof of that cage. Then there are 2 more dedicated mounting points for 2.5-inch SSDs, the classic old-fashioned way behind the motherboard tray. With these trays, you could practically also showcase your 2.5-inch SSDs on the PSU shroud. A micro ATX board that isn't like 15 years old or so, I unfortunately don't own, but I do happen to have a mini ITX board based on the AM4 socket. Installing all these components into the case went completely hassle-free. I didn't run into any convenience issues whatsoever, also no clearance issues. I do want to point out and make clear a very specific thing though. I have to massively criticize the case for going with those completely outdated expansion slot covers that need to be broken out and cannot be reused. At a price point of $76, and in the year 2021, that's one hell of a flaw and not acceptable in my opinion. Vertical graphics card mounting also is not an option, but usually not expected at that price point and size tier. Exemplary are those mounting holes on the top for fans and radiators that have been moved slightly sideways in order to not cause any clearance issues with the radiators and motherboard heatsinks. Fairly long graphics cards of up to 330mm also shouldn't cause any issues clearance-wise. Still, you should probably refrain from going for the most extreme configurations when having a radiator installed in the front. Cable management options aren't actually too shabby, albeit I'm certainly lacking the required talent and patience for it. You gotta know, usually I throw these types of systems together in about 1 hour for a video. Nonetheless, there certainly are plenty of mounting points for cables. In conclusion, the MONTECH AIR100 ARGB case in white, despite a few setbacks, such as those expansion slot covers that cannot be reused, it still manages to greatly impress, because it does so many things right in many other aspects. All in all, good build quality, nicely thought out design, meaning we can install a nice amount of hardware into it, given the size. 4 ARGB fans are already pre-installed, all of which are not connected with any proprietary connectors. Integrated is a small ARGB controller. The glass door I find fantastic, and last but not least, the airflow is pretty good. The manufacturer, at least going by this specific case model, to me makes an impression as if it had been in business for a very long time. The case seems very mature, mad respect. Of course, the case isn't 100% perfect, but at a price of $76, really not a bad deal one can make, in my humble opinion. If you, on top of that, happen to like the looks offered here, you certainly can pick up the case without any worries. Despite one or the other flaw, I love the AIR100 ARGB and seriously think of putting it to good use for a future project. With that being said, thank you so much for watching, and until next time.